Yeah. What are all the things we discussed? We discussed what is a robot, then some basic robot laws given by Isaac Asimov, then followed by some basic definition of robots. Okay. And we also discussed the social impact of a robot for society, what kind of an impact it can create. Okay. So robot and its subsystems, sensors, actuators, all those things we discussed. Uh, a brief idea about robotics history, robot manipulators, followed by some of the modern day robots like machine learning based robots, AI based robots, and how it's going to change the world. And then we finally wound up with some production automation side kind of robots. Okay, that's what we discussed. Okay, so we follow it up with one more slight level, advanced level. Then I'll introduce you to the subject in today's class. Okay. The various trends in robotics are more like this. Okay. So the classic robots during 1965, particularly in Stanford University, they worked on model-based robots. Okay, they build the models and they give it to the robot. The robot will work and act on the model and it will deliver the desired needs. Okay, and the sensors are very limited. Okay. In research, intelligent robots with sensors was anchored in good old AI techniques. Okay, so basically reasoning-based, model-based reasoning approach. Set of rules will be given and search algorithms will be given to the robots. The robot will act accordingly. Reactive robots during 1960s, 1990s, in fact, they require, they don't have world models, okay, but they rely on good sensors. Okay, all those modern day sensors like laser range finders, everything people started using during this time. Okay, all force sensors, haptic, tactile sensors, all kinds of sensors they started giving. Computer vision domain developed during this time. Okay, computer vision technology. Then during after 1990s, in fact, they started working with something called the uncertainty robots. This is a very an important phase of development of robots. An important phase. They started working with something called probabilistic robots. Probabilistic robotics, wherein they deal with uncertainty in a very, what you call, intuitive algorithmic way, employing the modern day statistical probabilistic tools effectively, particularly the field of Bayesian techniques. Bayesian approach was heavily employed during this time. And in fact, there is an excellent book on probabilistic robotics we can refer to. By next semester, in fact, you'll be learning it in autonomous navigation, probabilistic robots, by Sebastian Tharoux. You know this guy? Anybody from the class? Sebastian Tharoux. Anybody? No, he's a guy, in fact, who is instrumental in the Udacity. Okay, Udacity courses. He is brainchild. He was with Google. Then he was working in Stanford. Then he offered an online course on AI-based robotics. Then he left Stanford and he became, in fact, fully occupied with Audacity. Now I think with Google self-driving cars. Okay, Google self-driving cars, his brainchild. Okay. So he's very famous, Sebastian Tharoux. Just type in Google, will come to know. His books are also, probabilistic robotic book is really good. Uh, so, so here we are talking about unprecise model, unprecise sensors. Okay, so naturally you require probabilistic distribution-based models. Okay, that's why in fact we are learning the first semester probability and statistics. So pay particular attention to Bayesian approach. Okay, when you are learning the subject, because that will be of use to you during the second semester when you are going to learn autonomous navigation. Okay, so wherein you work with these kind of probabilistic models. So problems like the problem will be more like this. So you'll be having something like a mobile robot traveling in an axis like this. Okay, so the location of the robot in terms of this coordinate axis. Let us imagine there is only one axis, x-axis. It is 7 centimeters. Okay, just imagine there is units for the x-axis. How do you help the robot to identify or localize itself in terms of the environment? This is a kind of problem we'll be addressing. Okay. The robot has to localize itself in terms of the coordinate frame. Okay, this is a simple a scalar case I'm talking about, only one axis, not even two dimension. Okay, a single dimension, 1D, one dimensional case. So the thing is, in fact, you'll be working with problems like I said, there is a word called uh, unprecise models and unprecise sensors. Why it's called unprecise? Any idea? Unprecise models, unprecise sensors. What do you mean by any intuitive guess? The robot has to know where it is. Okay, the question is where I am. What's the question before it? Okay, where I am. So the robot has to know. Then only it can take corrective decisions. Then only it can navigate in an environment. Unless it knows where it is exactly, it cannot navigate properly. Navigation means what? Moving in a path. Okay, taking a route and then moving in a path. It may be a maze, or it may be a museum, or it may be a house. Okay. By the way, you know this robot called a Roomba robot. How many of you know this Roomba? Anybody from the class?
Yes, sir.
Yeah. What is this?
Vacuum cleaner robot, sir.
Yeah, it's a more kind of a vacuum cleaner robot. It cleans the house. Okay. When it moves here and there, it has to follow a particular path. Okay, but, it's a very random path. This is Roomba is very cheap, primarily because it employs a very minimal computing power as well as sensing devices. So it's not really employing a very what do you call it, intelligent path planning and all. But if you're going for a sophisticated version, the robot has to follow certain path. Okay, it should avoid obstacles effectively, and then it should follow certain intelligent paths. Okay, in terms of uh, optimal, in terms of what you call optimal cost functions. It's a very important term. In fact, you'll be coming across this term in your course, optimal cost functions. The cost function has to be minimized when it comes to energy, because I don't want to spend too much of energy, battery power. Okay, so I need to somehow or other need to choose a path so that I can reach my destination at the same time with minimal cost. Okay, so that's the kind of problem we'll be talking about. So what is where I am question? How do you address this? Where? How do you? How in fact you help the robot to localize itself? Any idea? How the robot will know? Say it's moving. Okay, it's moving. What are the things you require in 1D space? So the robot has to know what? What are the two information the robot has to know in order to localize itself if it is moving?
Sir, initial position.
Yeah, that's right. Okay, so that's in fact when you think about that position, okay, what you are doing is in fact you are doing kinematics. Okay, this right now you think about the position, this position, velocity, acceleration. Okay, in terms of an 1D case. Okay, it's a one-dimensional case. In fact, you are doing kinematics. Okay, so there is a mass associated with it. Okay, there is a kind of you are giving a torque, a kind of moment. Okay, to the motors of the wheels. Because of that, it's accelerating. Okay, there is a velocity associated component. There is a positional change. Okay, whatever you are doing in terms of these components, position, velocity, acceleration. Okay, okay, along with the geometric shape. Here, the geometry is only one dimensional case. Okay, we are not talking about plane now. we're talking about a scalar case, only one axis. Okay, it's a rectilinear motion, they call it. Okay, this kind of rectilinear motion along this is a more kind of a rectilinear or a translation motion along is what we're talking about. We are not talking about rotation. Okay, we are not talking about rotation. It simply moves on this path. For every stage, it has to know where it is. Okay, based on what kind of information it requires to know where it is exactly in this x-axis. It can be at 50 meters or 100 meters, where it is. How it will know about that? Based on the position velocity. Then that information, how it will collect? How it will collect? Any idea? There are two ways in which it can collect that. Okay, one is by mathematical modeling. Mathematical model of the robot. Okay. Then the other way is through sensors. Okay. When you are driving a vehicle, okay, when you are driving a car, for example, so how do you know the speed? Okay, you require a speedometer, odometry. Okay, the same way, wheel odometry can help us. Okay, we fix a wheel odometry and identify the number of ticks. Okay, so every time it rotates, a 2 pi rotation. Okay, so every time it rotates, you should know the diameter of the wheel. Okay, and you know how much amount of mass this entire robot is. Okay, thereby you will be in a position to calculate the velocity of this particular thing. Okay, it can, for example, it rotates two revolutions per second, 3 revolutions per second. Based on that, you can compute the velocity. Okay, the direction is only one direction, so it's not an issue at all. Speed is a right term. Okay, direction is only one direction, x direction for this case. Okay, so we are not talking about a vector case here. We are talking about a scalar case here. For the vector case, you should be bothered about the direction also. In that case, in order to represent that position of the robot, how many parameters you require? In this case, how many parameters you require? This position of the robot, if I want to represent it. How many parameters you require for only one axis? Only one parameter, x. I should know the x, where it is. Okay. If I know the x value correctly, then it is all right for. If it is in two-dimensional plane, like this, it's a two-dimensional coordinate system. Okay, I have x, y. My robot is somewhere here. It's a plane now. Okay, I'm talking about a plane. It's traveling over, for example, a table is there. Okay, over the table, you have kept your robot and it's going to move. Okay, imagine like that. Okay, so I have a x, y coordinate now. How many parameters are required to clearly understand the position of this particular robot?
2 positions, sir. X and Y. I mean, 2 parameters.
X and Y. Okay, apart from that, anything else you're thinking? No?
Angle?
That angle is important. Yeah, it is the orientation of this robot is also important. Okay, you should know the angle, the corresponding angle with which it is oriented. For example, the robot is maybe oriented like this. Okay, this angle is important. Okay, so X and Y, the corresponding angle. So if you require 3 parameters, okay, then it's feasible for you to identify this robot in a planar case. Okay, 2-dimensional case. Okay, 2-dimensional. So in this, the idea what I'm trying to convey to you is, so we'll be talking about robots. Okay, not only mobile robots, we'll be talking about something called a kind of rigid body arrangement like this. For example, a robot link. Okay, jointed like this. We'll be talking about this kind of manipulator robots. So for the position as well as the orientation, okay, that's important. So that is they call it as pose. Pose means what? Position, POSE. Position and orientation. Both are important. We'll be bothered about this. Position and orientation of this robots, okay, with respect to a particular coordinate system. With respect to a particular coordinate system is what you'll be learning in the first unit. Okay, coordinate system, particular coordinate system. There are different ways of coordinate systems, like Cartesian coordinate systems. That's what I've drawn here. There are other coordinate systems like cylindrical coordinate systems, spherical coordinate systems. Okay, there are different ways. So you learn gradually that. But right now, we will be mostly bothered about this Cartesian coordinate systems. In certain problems, you may be requiring cylindrical and spherical also. But just get a feel of all those ideas. But gradually, but right now just concentrate on this question, the unprecise sensors and unprecise models. So knowing with the help of the odometry, in fact, you'll be given an information about the robot. That is the position. But you have to understand very clearly that once you rely on the odometer, okay, to know the position and orientation of the robot. Okay, how do you know the orientation by using only odometry? For example, you have odometry sensors on 4 wheels, okay, of a vehicle. Okay, if you, it's called, they call it as, there are different ways of representing. It's called, see, you can, if I want to turn right, what do? I'll rotate one wheel and I'll reduce the speed of the other wheel. Thereby, I can get a particular orientation. Okay, that's feasible. So that's why, in fact, odometry is helpful for you to achieve both position as well as the orientation. Okay, so for in this 1D case, we are not bothered about orientation, but simply imagine I'm going to have the position measured with respect to odometry. Now imagine this odometry is prone to errors. Okay. Initially, there is an error, and over a period of time, when the robot starts moving, what will happen to the error? Initially, there is an error. Okay. When the robot starts moving, every time you go for a fresh measurement, and you are updating the position. Okay. So then, what will happen when the robot starts moving for quite a long time? What will happen? Can you imagine what will happen? Whether the robot will be knowing its location exactly? If there is an initial error. Yeah. What will happen to the error? If the robot starts moving with there is an error in the odometry, the measurement data is not perfect. Okay. So the accuracy of the odometry is not reliable. Imagine that. Okay. There is a sense of error. Every measurement when you're going to take, it comes along with an error. Okay. For example, if it is showing 7 meters, there is always a plus or minus 0.5 meters error. In that case, what will happen to the robot over a period of time if it starts moving? Whether the location will be exactly knowing the robot?
No, sir, definitely.
No, sir.
What will happen to the error? Whether it will increase or decrease?
It will increase.
It will keep increasing. Okay, it is called accumulation of errors, they call it. Okay, accumulation of errors. So over a period of time, the error accumulates. Okay, at some point of time, the robot will get completely lost. Okay, it is not knowing exactly where it is. So once it is not knowing where it is, then all decisions that it's going to take from that point, it's going to be erroneous. Okay, unless you know exactly where you are, then you will not go to your destination. Okay, so naturally the navigation is going to get severely affected because of the sensing errors. So that they have identified by 1990s, and they started working on with the probabilistic models. Okay, this is called unprecise sensors. And the other thing is you rely on sensors. That is one way of looking at the problem. The other way is what? Rely on models. Okay, you rely on models. What kind of model you are talking about? You talk about the robot model. Robot model can be mechanical models. So for mechanical models, for all mechanical models, what do you require? You require mass spring damper. Okay, so you build that model with mass spring dampers. Okay, and imagine you are going to end up in a differential equation for it. A simple differential equation. You might have studied in control theory. Okay, mass spring dampers, using that how to build. So for example, I'm going to end up with a second order model. This is the kind of model I'm talking about. So x of t is the input and y of t is the output. Can you imagine what is the y and this dy by dt and d square by dt for this model, for our mass spring damper system, and what is x and what is y? Our mobile robot. A very rudimentary model I'm talking about. There are coefficients. Can you imagine? What is xt? Yeah, anybody? Think for a minute. What is xt for our model? Differential equation. Anybody from the class?
The initial position and
Yeah, initial position. Then what is y? Y is the
final.
position. Y is the position. Okay. Y is the position for our robot, and x is the input. Whatever you are going to give, it is the force. It's a kind of velocity input. Okay, velocity input. How do you give? Through motors. So for motors, you need to provide the motor has to provide the required torque. Okay, it has to rotate, and thereby it gives the initial kind of velocity as input. Okay, and y of t is the position, du by dt is the velocity, is the acceleration, d squared by dt squared. Okay, this a b indicates what? From where this a b c comes from? Can you guess these coefficients?
Mass.
Yeah, that's mass
damper.
parameter, mass spring damper parameters. Okay, those parameters they are going to decide the entire dynamics of the system. Its entire dynamics is decided by that. Okay, but we are talking about a rectilinear linear motion. Okay, rectilinear, a translational motion here. But for rotary motion, you should think in terms of angular momentum. Okay, angular position, angular velocity, angular acceleration, everything will be angular, rotary. So, but in our robot case, okay, when you are going to move towards two-dimensional case, okay, you have both orientation angle as well as rectilinear motion. We will travel. Okay, so there will be rotations. There will be both what you call translational motion as well as rotary motion. Translational motion and rotary motion. So you should know about something about the kind of forces that are acting over the system. You should know about okay, various angular momentums. And we talk about something called rigid body dynamics. So it's called rigid body. It's not deformable. Okay, this kind of body is called as not deformable. Rigid body dynamics, not deformable. Not deformable means what? You cannot compress it. Okay, the robot is a kind of a strong body. You cannot no two any 2 points in that robot point now. Even if it translates or rotates, it will be parallel to each other. Any 2 points you take. Okay, the distance between 2 points will not change okay, over a period of time, even if you translate or rotate. There are something called flexible bodies. That's a very different domain. They call it as flexible robotics. That is different from rigid body robotics. So the entire dynamics and study of flexible bodies will be entirely different. So different higher level course it is. Okay, this course is a basic course, what we are learning, rigid body dynamic course. When we talk about flexible robots, flexible link manipulators, that's a different problem. Flexible link. So can somebody tell me what I said right now? What is it we are talking about? We are talking about the kinematics of robot to understand the geometric positions, okay, of a robot in a particular coordinate frame. Then what else we are discussing? We are talking about the two important problems. One is called the flexible manipulator problem, another one rigid body manipulator or robot problems. Okay, then also we talk about something called linear differential equations, okay, which can help you to model the system. And right now we are oriented towards understanding the position of a robot in a 1D space, okay, one-dimensional space, a scalar case. So the direction is not important there. So in that case, I said we can get the information about the position in two ways. Can somebody help me out? What are the two ways?
Yes, sir.
What are the two ways?
Using mathematical model and using sensors.
Okay, these are all important. Mathematical model, one thing, and the other one is using sensors. But what did I say? I said sensors are erroneous. Okay, because of erroneousness, the errors will accumulate over a period of time. It will accumulate. It will keep increasing. So you cannot rely in the long run. But what about mathematical models? Whether you can build perfect models? If I know, for example, I have a mathematical model of a system. If I know if I'm going to give this much input, I can very well predict what will be my output immediately. Yes or no? Basically, models are for prediction. Okay. So if I have a mathematical LTI model means what? Linear time invariant model. This you might have studied in undergrad level. Okay. What is a linear system? Anybody from the class?
Yes, sir.
What is
Linearity is obeying superposition and
yeah.
homogeneity.
Yeah, superposition is the key. Okay, superposition means it includes both homogeneity and additivity. Okay, additivity plus homogeneity. If you obey this law, because we are more bothered about this kind of systems only in our studies. But robot models basically demands nonlinear models. But what we do is we have an excellent tools to handle linear models. So what we do, we try to linearize these nonlinear models and use linear tools, linear systems tools. Can you name some linear systems tools that we employ heavily for analysis purpose? Analysis of linear systems. Can you name some tools, some good tools, mathematical tools? Can you name something? Anybody from the class? Linear systems tool, engineering tools, analysis tools, any tools, graphical tools. Can I name something?
Like MATLAB.
No. MATLAB is different. Tools in the sense I'm talking about mathematical tools, okay, analysis tools. So we have a lot of tools in the systems analysis. We have transformations like Laplace, Z transforms, Fourier transforms, okay. Then you have frequency domain analysis, then Bode plot. This you'll be learning under advanced control. Bode plot, Nyquist plot, okay, root locus. Okay, all these are linear systems tools. They are applicable only for analyzing linear systems. Analysis for only linear time invariant systems. As soon as you enter into nonlinear models, all these tools you cannot employ. Absolutely, they lost their credibility. Okay, credibility lost. You have to rely on some other nonlinear tools. Okay, that's a different domain altogether. Okay, you have a paper on nonlinear control. Those who are interested can take that. Okay, so nonlinear control is a domain where you talk about this kind of nonlinear tools there. Okay, the control theory will be completely different. We'll be talking about some Lyapunov-based control approach, Lyapunov control theory, feedback linearization approaches. Those are all different domains. But normally, what we'll do even for nonlinear control, sometimes we linearize the system over a particular operating zone, over a particular operating condition. Linearizing. Okay, for example, I have a curve like this, where this curve is linear or non-linear.
Non-linear.
It's non-linear curve. Okay, it's not. So what we do is we will try to linearize over a particular point. Okay, try to apply the tangent at the particular point to find out the dx by dt at that point. Okay, and then we'll try to operate something very near to that point. Thereby, you will linearize the entire curve like a straight lines. Okay, can you understand it? That's called a Taylor series approximation. You draw tangents at every point, and thereby you operate within that zone like a straight line expression. Instead of a curve, you are going to view that point as like a straight line, a tangent line. Okay, tangent line drawn at the particular point. This kind of linearization approach we will be employing for approximating nonlinear functions into linear functions, and then you apply the linear systems too. Okay, that's another approach. So here you mentioned about something like 2 ways in which I can identify the position with the help of sensors and with the help of the mathematical model. Okay, now I said that both the model as well as the sensors, both are going to give only one information. What is that information? That information is position. But whether that information is error free? No, it is full of errors. Now, how can I get the best estimate? That's the kind of problem they will be posing. How can I get the best estimate of the position? Okay, of the position amidst what? Amidst this errors. Is it possible for me to get the best estimate? Okay, amidst this errors. Amidst these errors or disturbances. Okay, amidst this. So is it possible for me to estimate the position? Okay, from this kind of. So here is what they do is they go for something called probabilistic models. Okay, so they try to fix the errors, okay, as noises, and they give a probabilistic distribution for it. So that's why, in fact, in this semester you'll be learning something
Sir,
called
this probabilistic models is used in combination with both of these.
Yeah, that's right. That's right. Yeah, that's right. That's right. So in fact, you'll be learning something called a normal distribution curves. You concentrate on it when you are learning probability statistics this semester. Try to put some effort in understanding normal distribution properly, particularly its properties, which in fact you'll be exploiting in autonomous navigation next semester. Okay, so here what we do is, see, this is applicable for both mobile robots as well as manipulators. Imagine a manipulator. A manipulator taking a, what do you call it, moving like this in a particular x-axis. Okay, it's moving here and there. You think of an industrial manipulator moving here and there. So that's applicable for that also, the same idea. Okay, understanding the position. But in this case of manipulators and all, it is going to be fixed to a wall or something. Okay, fixed to a base. Okay, you can rely on sensors. But here in this case, what happens? It's as it's moving, the surface friction, okay, the surface friction, and all other kinds of wind energy, all kinds of other disturbances, it's going to create a huge kind of a noise. Okay, so in that way, you should be careful about modeling. Okay, so in that case, what we are going to do is we take the noise and fix a probabilistic distribution to the noise. Okay, and you're going to have some distribution curve like this. Okay, so for example, when I'm going to say my robot is here, okay, imagine only 1D. Okay, 1D problem, one dimension, x-axis around, no direction along y. Imagine that. Now, when the robot is using the sensor, it is what it is saying is I'm here. Is what it is saying. A Gaussian distribution. Okay, so it means what? There is a mean and there is a variance. So this kind of model, sensor model, they call it as a probabilistic model. So whenever the robot is saying that I'm here, then it's talking only about the mean. When it's talking about the mean, there you have to understand there is a underlying uncertainty that comes because of the variance. So the probability of being near to the mean is high. That's all. That's the idea. Okay, if it goes away, there is the corresponding probability. We look at this. Okay, so there is a possibility, but you have to understand there is a possibility. The variance is there, so there is a possibility of being either here or here or here. The probability is there. You have to understand. There is a probability of being anywhere, but there is a mean. There is a variance. So this is a fundamental. See, if the variance is more, so then what is your conclusion? Immediately, what do you decide? The variance is large. Okay, large variance. The curve is like this. Whether you rely on the sensor, whether you rely for a large variance like this.
No, sir.
No, definitely not, because uncertainty is very large. Uncertainty is huge. And you can be anywhere. That's what the meaning is. Okay, if I'm going to say I can be anywhere here, that's not a what do you call an accurate prediction. Okay, I can be anywhere here means that's something not reliable. Okay, so sensor reading is not reliable. So what is our goal? Then naturally I need to somehow minimize this variance. So we need to think of algorithms which can help in minimizing this kind of variance using probabilistic Bayesian approach and all. Bayesian approach, what we do? We go for a fresh measurement from that point. Okay, So you go for one observation of the with the help of a mathematical model. Okay, so the mathematical model is going to tell you, even though it is erroneous, it's going to give you a distribution like this. Okay, it is erroneous. It is also augmented with Gaussian distribution. Okay, so now I got two distributions. One is telling it is somewhere here, the other one is telling somewhat here. You are here. Okay, two data I have got about the same location of the robot. Then what do? What is the best estimate I can get? Can you guess? Can you guess that?
Sir, is it where the fuzzy logic comes in?
Okay, fuzzy logic is different. Okay, fuzzy logic, you see, by looking at this Gaussian distribution, you are thinking of what you call triangular membership functions. Okay, that's different. Okay? Membership functions are different. Fuzzy logic, you are talking about membership functions, and these are all the positions. Okay, you are thinking like that. Okay, it's all right. Fuzzy is connected to probability, but not exactly. I'm talking something about Gaussian distributions. Okay, Gaussian distribution. I got two information about the same. See, what is the true state? Nobody knows. Okay, the robot is this one. The model is saying it is here, and the sensor is saying it is here. What is the true state? Nobody knows. Only the observer knows the true state. Okay, but he cannot pass on that information to the robot. So, but somehow the robot has to reconcile this particular situation. How it will do? What is the best way? For example, I have a sensor. I'm measuring temperature. One sensor is showing 75 degree. The other sensor is showing 78 degree. What is your best estimate? What do you do?
Take mean.
Yeah, take mean, that's all. Okay, so naturally here also, this kind of algorithms, what they normally do is they will try to fuse these two information. Okay, I got two information, then I will try to fuse these two information and get a better estimate. So normally what happens, your algorithm, when it is doing that, over a period of time, this variance will come down. Okay, the algorithm, what in fact you can will be learning mostly is Bayesian-based estimators. Okay, dynamic Bayesian estimators. All these are very interesting problems. But everything, the roots are in what? Probability statistics. Okay, probability statistics is going to play a role. Most of the modern day algorithms, they rely heavily on these probability statistics methods. Okay, so follow the Cyclicus lectures in order to gain more insights and be very proficient. MIT OpenCourseWare. Okay, about probability statistics. So that's a kind of message for this particular slide I'm giving. Okay, so what is that we are talking about? Can somebody summarize what I said? Yeah. What is the key takeaway point from this slide? You need to rely on sensors as well as models, but both are erroneous. So you need to work out an algorithm like Bayesian-based estimators, which can help you to reduce the variance over a period of time by running the algorithm. Okay, what you do is we will try to first sense. Okay, it's more like sensing, then observing, then fusing information. That's the kind of approach you'll be doing. The algorithm will work like this. Initially, you will sense, you will observe using mathematical model. Okay, then you will try to fuse. Or otherwise, you can say use a model, you then observe, okay, use it with the help of a sensor, then you fuse both. Okay, both the information. So all this, the kind of problem we'll be talking about, Bayesian estimated problem. So, but all are distribution curves. That is important. Probabilistic distributions. Okay, so yeah. So that's the model we're talking about. So this is the kind of plan we're talking about: sense, plan, and act. Okay, the real world environment. So classical intelligent robotics, in fact, they employ this particular technique. But nowadays we are heavily going for probabilistic approaches. Okay. So, this is the kind of plans you're talking about. From the outside environment, get the sensing data. If you're going for a reflexive feedback, immediate feedback, this is effectors. And effectors means, in our case, the actuators we're talking about. So, in fact, the effectors is something it's going to interact with the environment. Okay. So in the case of a mobile robot, they're going to be the wheels of the robot. Okay, is going to bring about a change in the environment. In the case of manipulators, the end tool. I'll show you a diagram and you understand. The tool that is connected to the last link. It may be a welding tool or it may be a painting tool, okay, something like that. Pick and place tool. So that's an effector. It's going to bring about a change in the environment. That's why it's called an effector. When you pick and place something, you are changing something in the environment. So that's why effector. So there are something called selection and data processing approaches. Okay. And something called perception. So this is a cognitive module they could talk about. The cognitive module. Look at the model of the world is there. This is called mapping the environment. It's another problem. You can build a map. Okay, it's a model of the world they call it. Okay, and use the perception from the sensing data, then plan your actions, and plan realize it with the help of some hardware circuitry and all. Then apply it in the end effector, bring about a change. With the different feedbacks at the various levels, in fact, you can operate. With the lowest level, then the level hierarchy increases. Okay, so at a very high end, you have cognitive ability. There are a lot of planning going on here. Okay, lot of optimization algorithms will be running. Optimization is another area we need to think. Very important domain. In fact, those who are going to learn control theory, optimal control theory, as an elective, you will learn a lot. And those who are going to learn something related to reinforcement learning, they will also learn optimization. In fact, many of the robotics problems nowadays, they started eyeing for reinforcement techniques. Maybe you can type on Google, see what is the reinforcement learning is all about. If you are interested, maybe you can think of working on this domain. IITM professor Balram Rajinder. If you visit his website, IITM, he's become very famous nowadays and very popular among reinforcement learning community. Okay? And throughout the world, his works are now getting recognized. Like an MIT professor is, okay, so Balram Ravinder, IITM. So that is a reinforcement learning is something you can think of this planning and all. You can employ reinforcement learning to do some kind of optimization related work. So that's another area that you can think of. So that's the idea. So look at the autonomous interaction with the real world. What are all the things? Just read the slide for a minute. This is what we did with the help of simple odometer. Just knowing the rotations of the wheel. Okay. This is a model of the outer ring. This is where the mapping comes. Robot mapping. Internal representation of the outer ring. So these are all something called as you employ something called the control theory will be learning something called state space models. How many of you know this idea? Anybody from the class? Tell me what is this? Anybody? Can you guess what it is? What is X dot? It's called a system state. Okay. If this X dot is system state, for our case, a simple mobile robot, what will be the state of this robot? That's the position. Position can be one of the state. That's the idea. Okay. So then what we are studying how that position varies with respect to time, dx by t. With the help of a scalar case means I get a small constant a x. What is this model? If I know the initial position, I can tell where I will be based on this expression. Okay. I can tell you where the next state will be based on this expression. And this A is a constant. This constant is decided by the particular system. So naturally, this is a kind of expression you'll be learning under the state space models in control theory, wherein it's a very powerful tool. Will be what we call completely decomposing an nth order differential equation into n first order differential equations. Okay, so in that case, what will happen? See here. So if I'm going to have the second order system like this, how many states then I'll be having? The second order differential equation. How many states I'll be having? Nth order means n order, n first order. So then n first order means I can have, for each order, I can have one state. Okay. Likewise, if I have a second order system, how many states I'll be having? I have 2 states. Now can you guess the states? x1 dot, x2 dot. These are all the 2 states. Now I would have a matrix here, x1, x2. I'll be getting like this. So now tell me, what can be these states? x1 can be the position again, x2 can be velocity. So I can compute velocity here, acceleration here. Okay. So naturally, this kind of models is called as the state space model. It can provide you a very powerful tool for working with mobile robots, particularly, as well as robot manipulators. Okay, they give you a model of the environment. You will be knowing what is going to happen next. So solving unexpected events in the environment. This is what I said, probabilistic models. Unexpected. Okay, you can change some. For example, if this A and as I said that A, B, C. Now you only said the parameters. These parameters can also vary with respect to time. So then in that case, you get something called linear time varying systems. So particularly for aerial vehicles, okay, you should be careful about drones and all. If some of the parameters are varying, for example, aerial vehicles, particularly drones and aerial vehicles, what will happen? Why the parameter changes? Can any strong intuitive guess why the parameter normally changes for aerial and the drones and all? They'll be carrying a good amount of fuel. Okay, fuel is having its own mass. So over a period of time, when the aerial vehicle moves and drones moves, this mass will come down. Okay, will come down because it is going to get exhausted. Okay, the fuel is going to get exhausted. So naturally, over a period of time, this time varying, the coefficients of the differential equations may vary. Okay, that's the idea. So that's the kind of model we'll be talking about. Yeah. Anybody? So this is the kind of probabilistic models, uncertain models we talked about. Solve autonomously tasks based on the model of the environment and formulate. This is where the planning module and the problem solving module comes. All algorithms comes into picture. Diffusion algorithm, the last slide I said now, an intelligent algorithm. Try to fuse 2 distributions and get the mean of it. It's an estimation algorithm, they call it. A simple averaging out algorithms. Okay, so we could develop algorithms for this. So this kind of algorithm, problem solving and planning module is there that will help you to do that. So is there something you can infer from this slide? Next one, the kind of the realizer of the plans. There is a motoric module. Okay, so here a lot of electronics involved. In the second class, when I discussed about the program objective, I mentioned about different domains: mechanical, computer science, control and signal processing and all. Along with that, you should know that signal processing and computer domain, they integrate, they come together in a domain called embedded systems. Okay, a good background in undergrad level, if you have an embedded systems, you can develop. You can develop some good robots also. Okay, so that's important. So electronics domain, the power electronics domain comes into picture. You have to control motors and all. Okay. Actively influence the environment by manipulating objects in it by its effectors, end effectors, I said. Another area which I would like to convey here is, in fact, as an elective, we'll be learning something called multi-robot systems. This is also another domain really coming up. The last class I mentioned about swarm robots. Group of robots can do something cooperative manner, they can do some job at all. So wherein communications and cooperation is going to play an important role. So people with the background on ECE, maybe with a good communication background, may think of a project on this kind of domains. Okay, embedded systems background with ECE background is there. Maybe think of building some swarm robots. It's a lot of reinforcement algorithms, machine learning, and then it's a confluence of all kinds of engineering domains, swarm robots, okay, networking, computer science, everything is involved in swarm robots. So research is a big research area. The technology is not matured, it's a very nascent, very initial stage. Maybe you can refer to IISc Bangalore. Okay, they have a Bosch Cyber Physical Lab. Robert and Bosch, this company. Robert and Bosch Cyber Physical Lab. And wherein you just refer to Dr. Sundaram Suresh work. Okay, maybe if you can do some good work, we will talk to him for the kind of an intern. As a main project or internship, we can talk to him. Okay, IISc Bangalore. So if by this year or another 1.5 year time, if you can come up with some mini level work in this domain, what you call cooperative robots or communication robots, even simulation is also all right, with a good thorough grasp of the fundamentals. Because IISc Bangalore is famous for giving projects only based on the quality. Okay, the students' quality they will check like anything, then only they take you in. So in that case, come up with some fundamentals that are clear and come up with some simulation project. Maybe you can. I will talk to Dr. Sundaram Suresh. Maybe he'll be interested in taking some interns also. Okay, he has given few lectures at Shastra through international conferences. So we are in touch with him. Okay, so it will be a good kind of collaborative effort if we can do that and come up with some project. Okay, then perceiving and recognizing the situation, including the other agents in the environment, ability to learn. This is where the machine learning comes. Ability to learn and imitate. Okay, so very interesting problems. Okay, machine learning, deep reinforcement learning, all those things comes. Formulating its own goal is a very high end. Cognitive robot at the peak. Formulating its own goals based on AI-based techniques. Okay, that's the idea. Robotics is a perception cycle. It's more like this. Sensors, actuators, robots take an action in the real world, perceive the environment, how the environment has changed. Based on that, you decide again what will be the next action to be taken. Okay, so this is a perception action cycle, they call it. Sensing, perception, action, they call it. Cycle. Perception action. Okay. Another. So before we get into the kinematics part, I would like to show you a picture. The kind of robot we'll be talking about in this course predominantly. Okay, so we'll be talking about what do you call manipulator robot, industrial manipulator robot. And we'll be knowing about these links. These are called as the links. In the joint, you have a motor with sensing element, and there will be another link. There will be link, another joint here, and there is a end effector. The end effector. So the questions that we'll be posing in this semester is more like this. You'll be fixing coordinate frames for each of these rigid bodies, links, okay? And you will see how these links are connected in terms of the base frame or the base coordinate frame. Okay, you fix some reference frames for each of these links, and then you will study how these coordinate frames which are connected to these bodies. Okay, not these joints on the links. Okay, so these are all these links you'll be connecting the coordinate frames, and you'll be relating this coordinate frames movement with respect to a base frame link, okay, which is not moving. These are also, they call it as fixed frame or coordinate. The fixed frame means I'm talking about coordinate frames. What is coordinate frames? Any idea? The XYZ, okay, XYZ frames. For example, the mobile robot case, we took 1D. That's a coordinate frame. But here we are going to talk about three-dimensional frames, XYZ frames. And we are going to study how there is one thing called fixed frame I'm telling, which is not going to move. And the rest of the frames are all going to move because I'm going to fix the frames on the links. The links are going to move, yes or no? Because the joint motor is going to rotate, so naturally the links are going to move. Accordingly, the frames are also going to move. It's called moving frame. Moving frame means what? Moving coordinate frame. The coordinate axis is going to rotate. It's going to translate and rotate. Translation and rotation. These are all the two things we'll be studying, and we'll be linking that with respect to the base frame, and we'll study the connections between them. Okay, thereby you'll be knowing the end effector's position and orientation in a proper way. So that's the kind of studies we'll be doing this semester. I think I can stop here. We'll learn more about the kinematics in next class. Okay, anything you want to discuss in this class again? The last 2 minutes. All right.
Sir, how will we tell this is the is the how we'll calibrate that robot to know that this is the starting point, and I mean the coordinate frames, this is 0 0, this is so and so coordinate, like that. How will we define that space for that?
No, that's what the entire study. The first unit will be studying that. Okay, completely will be knowing only that. Okay, there will be initial frame.
My doubt is it through only through program, or any physically also there is anything done there, like keeping pointers in space so that...
Yeah, that is feasible. Okay, that's called beacons. Okay, you can fix some beacons. Okay, anyway, it has to sense that now. Okay, when it is sense, you are taking it inside the computer. Okay, so for example, your vision sensor. The vision sensor can be employed for knowing some of the beacons that are nearby. Okay, thereby you can pass on that information to the robot. But the idea is basically we are going to do something called a geometric based approach. The first unit, whatever you are going to learn, is a geometric approach. Okay. The entire kinematics is more of geometry of motion. So we'll be talking in terms of coordinate frames and how they are connected. Okay, so how they are related. And we'll be working out all these in terms of only precise mathematics, geometry, and everything is coded, programmable. How much of rotation, what is the initial point, how much torque has to be given to the motor in order to realize a particular position. Okay, everything needs to be mathematically connected, modeled in terms of coordinate axis. Okay, so you'll end up with something called transformation matrices. See, once the robot is designed with a particular length, with a particular okay, particular mass and all, then every position of that robot can be predicted with the help of your kinematic model. Because the transformation matrix with respect to the various orientations will be stored in the computer. This is what you asked now? Now,
yes, sir.
So we'll be doing that as a computer-based assignment. In MATLAB environment you can do. Okay, we'll do that. So I think any other doubt? Okay. So this is, you can refer to the diagram I've taken from this piece. PG4390 from Ottawa University. Very neat diagram. So that's why the credit goes to this university. That's all. Today's class is wind up. Anything you want to discuss? Okay, I'll wind up.